and welcome to One More Thing podcast. Today I'm joined with Dr. Larry Baucom.
Good morning.
Good morning. So again, I don't know who's interviewing who here, so
It's all good.
we're both on stage together for week 5, Becoming More. And it's always awesome to share the stage with you and to dialogue. And, you know, we have this running joke, you and I, when we know we're in dialogue, like, do we really need these notes? You know, because we understand these concepts and these principles, these ideas, and we just kind of follow from each other. And we have this sort of stream of consciousness that, you know, I believe like it's God's Spirit leading us to go where our minds go and to, you know, sort of enlighten the crowd on some of these ideas and principles we're trying to teach. But this one was really, really special for me, because it was hard to put like a particular singular topic on it, because we talked a little bit about deconstruction, reconstruction, and how even Moses had a type of deconstructive, reconstructive moment.
Right.
But what I'd like to focus on is something that from the conversations in the Grand Hall that really moved people, was the notion that following God, making that decision to step out and go, okay, I have all these excuses, all these reasons to not do what I believe God is calling me to do. But okay. And the fallacy, the belief that once I do that, everything's going to be good. My life's going to be perfect. God's going to just lay this smooth pavement out. There won't be any thorns or thistles. Like, why is that still part of some Christian belief that it's just going to be smooth sailing when I trust Jesus?
I don't know why it is, but I know that it's not consistent with life, and it's not consistent with the biblical narrative.
Right.
And you just go through any of the ancient fathers of the faith of, you know, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, pick one.
Yep.
And you go, Abraham had his issues. I mean, even point where he had to lie about Sarah being, said she's my sister.
Yeah.
Then you go to Isaac, you know, and he had these boys, and there's a little controversy with the boys about stealing the birthright.
That's right.
And you got Jacob, who's the deceiver, the hill grabber.
That's right.
That had, you know, and he goes to Laban to get the wife, and all of a sudden he doesn't get the right wife. He gets the sister. And then you come down even to Moses. He's a murderer.
Yeah.
And then when he finally comes clean and says, okay, I'm not worthy, and God still says, go, he goes, and Pharaoh says, no way is it going to happen. And then his friends come to him and said, hey, you're the deliverer, and all you've done is deliver more grief on our life. I mean,
right.
That's the life journey. Is there's going to be stuff that happens. Being a Christian or a Christ follower does not exempt you from life. You know, you're born. There are great moments. There's moments of struggle and crisis.
Yeah.
You work your way through those. And then at some point in our life, and this is what people, you know, at some point we're all going to die.
Yep.
And there's a mortality to this whole thing.
That's
I don't
right.
know anyone that has lived forever.
That's right.
And I'm at an age now to where I go, okay, yeah, I've lived, I'm about to halfway.
Yeah.
So if I live beyond my life, that'll put me in a, you know, mid-130s. That's about right. So it'll be fine.
Yes.
But I think that, but we need to come to grips with, it's not about being free from that, but it's realizing that I don't have to go through these things alone.
Yeah.
And Moses did not have to go through it alone. And God said, look, not just I'm going to be with you, but here's your brother. And here are these signs I'm going to give you.
Yeah.
And you follow the direction. And as difficult as it is, I think someday you'll see that the deliverance happens and you've been used of God in a particular way. But it's not, you know, it's not the health wealth thing where the preacher stand up, you know, I need 2 jets because God wants me to fly across the country. Or, you know, if you're sick, don't blame God, blame yourself because you don't have enough faith.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough money, don't blame God, blame yourself because you're not trusting God, because God wants you to be completely healthy, completely wealthy.
Yeah.
And that theology is good on TV.
Yeah.
And it's good for extorting funds.
That's right.
But it's not legitimate. It's not consistent with biblical theology. It's not consistent with logic.
Oh, man.
So, you know, you and I are, you know, we're men of faith, fullness,
That's right.
but also men of intellect.
That's right.
And we don't mind discussing these things in an honest way. But at the end of the day, we want to help people
That's right.
through their journey find not frustration, because it's going to come on its own,
That's right.
but find the reality that something is with me through the frustration.
Yeah, man.
And I think that's a better way to live.
That's a great way. And something you said there just now just got my mind thinking about this heightened sense of awareness about our temporality. Like, my life is temporary, you know, but so is the struggle, you know, and so are the good times. Like, everything is temporal. And the peace of being in and with community, to celebrate your victories and triumphs, and to care for you, pray for you, walk with you through the temporal times of struggle. And that's one of the things in the story of Moses that we talked about in one of the points, was when we do step out into that faithfulness, that following God is not going to be the path of least resistance. And we made note yesterday that anything worth doing has to have a piece of struggle in it. And we're not talking about just like the daily life struggles of, man, you know, I lost my job, or I lost a loved one. But anything worth doing, if I want to get healthy. And I said something yesterday just on a whim. It was, you know, becoming who you most want to become will often require you doing what you least want to do. Like, how is that true in becoming more Christ-like? That to become more Christ-like, I may need to do things that I least want to do in that journey. Like,
Well, let me do a couple of analogies.
Yeah.
If you want to become a musician and play the guitar, play the keyboard like some of our tremendous band,
yeah,
I mean, if you want to do that, you're going to have to learn to rehearse. You're not just going to get up there and play and it's going to be fine. Every person on that stage who does a spectacular job, they know what their job is, and they practice, rehearse the music before they get there. And I think of my kids all having about 12 years of piano through high school, and then Laura 4 more years, and Stacy a couple more years, and Ryan playing everything. But how do you get there? So I want to become a great musician. Where you're going to have to do what you don't want to do.
Yep.
What's that? Practice. Guess what? I want to be well read. Well, you're going to have to read.
that's right.
I want to be a real spiritual guy. Well, how's that? What are you doing about that?
That's right.
And I think for me, the times in my life where I've grown the most spiritually are the times that I'm most reflective. So when I get busy, I don't see myself in my best state. It's when I withdraw from my busyness and spend some time. I heard this years ago. I used to take once in a while, I call it a DAWG, a dog day.
Yeah.
What's a dog day? Day alone with God. And I'd have that one day where I'd say, I'm out of town. I'm off the phone. I'm just going to spend a day thinking about my life and my community and where God is leading me. And if we really want to grow as spiritual beings, I think sometimes we got to unplug. And as Richard Rohr would say, contemplation.
Yes.
You got to go inward. And or as I read today from Thomas Merton, being with the Quakers, you know, it's living in the silence, sitting there for an hour, and realizing that, you know, your mind is everywhere.
Yeah.
But in the silence, all of a sudden you begin to hear a connection with something, this light that's within us. We have this connection. So that's what I think. What do you think? What spiritual practice would you think?
I think that's exactly it. There was a time when I was doing some post-grad work in Oxford, and if you know Oxford, it's a collaboration of like 46 colleges and universities and some what they call permanent private halls. But every college in Oxford is built on a quadrant, so basically a square where you have classrooms, dormitories, and every college has a chapel, beautifully adorned with stained glass. And one of my favorite ones there is where C.S. Lewis was a Don, Magdalen College. It's the only college that has black and white stained glass windows. Beautiful. Like, it's like nothing you've ever seen. And I remember being in there one day, and I just went in, and it was empty, just empty. At least I thought it was empty. And so I went to the front, and I just kneeled, and I just started praying and contemplating. But I didn't know that their choir was set up in the balcony, and the men's choir began to just sort of warm up their voices, like, ooh, ho, ho, ho. And it was like I was in the presence of angels, in the presence of the divine. And Larry, this just overwhelming sense of love and peace. And regardless, like I was far away from my family at that time. And regardless of the struggle and, what was wanting to overtake my mind, that presence of Christ through the voices and just the facility itself, and my volition to say, hey, I want to be alone, that dog day, like that's a beautiful way to do it. I just felt God just flood me with his love and presence. And it's impossible to walk away from something as simple as that the same. Like you can't, even if it's a 1 degree or half a degree change in your mentality of, I need to do this more often. Like that's a positive change. But you have to be intentional about it. And you can't focus on the negative things or the struggles that are happening in your life at that moment. Because again, it's all going to be temporary. So that's what I do. I'm the same way. For me, now it's Lido Beach or Longboat Key. When I get off of work, I go home and Esther's getting ready, and we take our afternoons at least 2 or 3 days a week. We're very intentional about, let's go to the beach, let's catch a sunset. We're both clocked out, but let's clock out of this and clock into this.
No, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, man.
And I listen and I go, man, I don't do that at all. Mine is so totally different.
Yeah.
And I go through phases. Sometimes I get in the zone and I stay there, and other times I get busy and I'm working on sermon series or working on other things because I spin a lot of plates.
Yes.
And I punish myself sometimes by doing that. But I do remember an incident that, and I'm excited because we're going to Israel together in January. But there's an incident in the Garden of Gethsemane where you go in this church and there's no talking allowed. Interesting, no talking. And you go there and there's a little big stone in the middle of what would be the chancel area or the pulpit area. And the big stone, and there's a little wrought iron fence about 10 inches tall around this thing. But you can reach over and touch it. And then because it's quiet, I just knelt down to put my hand on there, and I just stayed there in quiet. And then I began to realize this is the same place where Jesus wept, and realizing what was coming. And then I began to weep. And I had an old gospel song. I have one deep, supreme desire that I may be like Jesus. I mean, I want to be like Christ. I want to be that to the world. And this God moment, I wasn't anticipating it.
Yeah.
But because I'd quieted myself in that moment, it came upon me, and I really felt a strong spiritual connection.
Yeah.
And those are times not just for clergy. That's for everyone.
Everyone, yeah.
Pull your car over. Stop somewhere before you go in the house. When you get up in the morning before the bustle of kids happen. Or, or maybe you're a night owl and everyone goes to bed and you stay up a little while. Turn the TV off for the ball game, which I watch football too.
Yeah.
But there's times that I need to unplug in some measure. It's good for my soul. And I think it's good for us as a community to connect to God in some way. And I think that's what we're trying to convey this weekend.
That was awesome.
That, that Moses, not everything is always as easy as you think. And let's go probably a couple times. I want to go back to the burning bush, back where the holy ground is, take my shoes off and stand there longer. But after a while, you got to put your shoes on.
That's right.
And you got to go back into the heat. But it's those moments of reflection, like in the chapel, that they become part of our milestones of life. We pick them up and we look back and realize God has been faithful. He will be faithful. And that's a good message to our community.
That's right on. And that was like the closing question was, our final point, which was really impactful, was the fact that being free is rarely immediate, but it takes the process. And I said something I was at dinner with some guys last night celebrating Derek McConnell's birthday. And, and we had a sort of, we have our notes and stuff, but usually we throw things out, like throwaway statements. And this one really hit him. And he said, man, you said something, and he said, it's not about trusting the process. It's about trusting God's process. Because a lot of times a process is what my mind believes it to be. And so the last question I have, Dr. Baucom, is how different is God's process from human expectation of what we believe the process should be?
That's a good question. And I don't know. I think sometimes they're parallel.
Okay. Yeah.
But often not. Often when I look back, I see the process that he led me through was different than the process that I anticipated. I look through the rearview mirror and I see his hand working in my life. I look out of the front glass of the car and sometimes I have no idea. So I'm going, okay, I'm just going to keep driving and trust the process. And I look backward and go, yeah, he's consistent. And also sometimes when I turn left, and maybe I should have stayed going straight, I find myself left and I turn right and right and right, and then I'm back on the main road again. But regardless of whether I turn left there or not, I want people to hear, God is with me.
Yes.
And despite right or left turns, I think sometimes those are choices we make. But as long as God is in our boat or in our car or in our lives and he's riding with us, I don't think there is a choice that's irredeemable or maybe momentarily a mistake, but he turns around and it's the right choice. It's the right choice because you made it.
That's right.
And it was the best I could do at that time. But I love being a Christ follower. And I love teaching people the freedom that comes with this. It's not what I grew up with, but man, once the lid of that box is open, I can never go back in that box because God is too big.
That's
too
right.
meaningful.
That's well said, man. Thanks so much, Dr. Baucom, for the time.
My pleasure. Thanks, Troy.